All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're taking a church service from the first Sunday of Advent, and we're going to treat it like source material, break it down to really understand its core message. What's the central idea here? How is the argument built? And why does it land the way it does? Let's dive in.
Everything, and I mean everything in this service, really hinges on this one core idea. The argument is simple. The real meaning of an event isn't just in the moment it happens. It's in the preparation leading up to it. So that single concept, that's the lens through which we should view everything that follows. All the readings, the sermon, the community's actions, the whole shebang. So if preparation is the key, what does that actually look like? Well, the service defines it through the season of Advent itself.
Advent isn't presented as just, passively counting down the days on a calendar. It's framed as an active, deliberate process. And the key phrase they use is to reorient ourselves. That suggests this intentional reset of your focus and your mindset before the main event even begins. And here's where that idea of preparation connects to a really core theological concept. The first scripture reading is all about light overcoming darkness. So this personal act of preparing your heart and mind, it's presented as a direct parallel to this much bigger spiritual idea of hope winning out over anxiety and despair. But this preparation, it isn't just supposed to be some internal feeling. It's meant to lead to external action. The service actually spends a good amount of time showing how this idea translates into real, concrete support for the community. You see this number, 500 to 600 pounds, and it represents the tangible impact of their outreach. It's the actual weight of food their mobile pantry distributes each time it goes out. It's a clear metric they're using to show how the church is addressing local food insecurity. In a way, it takes that abstract idea of hope and turns it into groceries. And to put a human face on that number, a church member shared this story. They used leftover food from an event to provide a Thanksgiving dinner for a local family experiencing homelessness. This quote really brings the church's beliefs down to a personal level, showing a direct, real-world outcome. So, we've seen the theme, preparation, and how it's put into action. Now the main sermon gets into the why behind it all, and it structures its argument around this idea of returning to a starting point. The sermon itself is built around this 4-point roadmap. The pastor basically proposes that the Christmas season is this unique time that can help you make these 4 key discoveries, guiding you from a place of, say, uncertainty to one of clear purpose. To explain that first point about returning to our beginning, the sermon uses this really powerful modern analogy, resetting a computer to its factory settings. It's presented as a way to clear out all the mental and spiritual clutter to get back to an original intended state, to find your foundational true north. Okay, so the next 3 points build on this idea of reorientation, and they tackle some pretty big questions about chaos, knowledge, and purpose. The core of the argument really comes down to this contrast. The sermon presents 2 competing worldviews. On one hand, you have a life that feels like a cosmic accident, chaotic, messy, and ultimately meaningless. But on the other hand, you have a world of intentional design, where a designer provides meaning and purpose. The sermon's claim is that the Christmas story is meant to move people from that first column over to the second. Building on that, the sermon pushes back against the idea of a distant, uninvolved God, what it calls a clockmaker God, someone who just winds up the universe and walks away. Instead, it argues that God actively wants to be known and reveals himself in the most unexpected, humble places, like a manger. And the sermon concludes that this makes his presence inescapable. And all of these pretty complex theological ideas, preparation, reorientation, design, revelation, are then summarized in the sermon's conclusion using a single, incredibly powerful story. So the pastor tells this parable by the writer Henri Nouwen. It's about twins discussing their existence in the womb. The sister represents faith, and she's convinced there's a reality beyond their immediate experience. But her brother, he's the skeptic, arguing that nope, this is it. Their current world is all there is. And the conflict deepens. The sister proposes that there's a mother, but the brother just dismisses the idea because he has no direct empirical proof. He's never seen a mother, so to him, she can't possibly exist. This is the heart of their whole debate. So the sister presents her evidence, but it isn't visual proof. It's a shared experience, these squeezes. She points to these uncomfortable, sometimes painful moments as a sign that something is happening beyond their comprehension, a force acting on them from the outside. And this is the climax of the story. The sister completely reframes the squeezes, the struggle, the difficulty. She argues they aren't random suffering, they're preparation. She says these unpleasant moments are actually getting them ready for a new reality, a bigger world where they'll finally understand their origin. See how it connects all the way back to that opening theme? Meaningful preparation.
The service ends by taking this powerful parable and turning it into a direct question for everyone listening. It takes that central metaphor, the unexplained pressures and difficulties of life, and asks us to consider them not as meaningless struggles, but as a form of preparation for something more.